This is Lorraine,
And Jennifer?
and we're going to talk about content planning. Doesn't that sound fascinating?
Well, some people might be interested in that. You should be interested in it, but
We, what I really want to talk about is making your content planning interesting,
yeah,
because too often I think, and you I were talking about this before, that people keep doing the same thing over and over,
yeah,
and
and it's boring.
it gets boring for you, and it gets boring for your readers, for your audience. They get tired of seeing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, when we're talking about content for those people who don't regularly produce it, we're talking about what you put out, whether that's in your social media, in your email marketing, like whatever channel you're using to promote it. There's certainly lots of different ways to go about it. And if you've been doing the same thing over and over for a long time, it's time to change.
And the fun thing is that there are lots of different ways that you can shake up your content to make it fun for you and your audience.
Yes.
For example, I think a lot of times people are like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And they get into this rut, and they're like, okay, questions. We'll ask a question a day for 5 days, and then they run out of steam. And okay, maybe we'll share this kind of stuff without really stepping back and just like with any marketing, saying, what do I want to accomplish?
Yeah.
What do I want? So you got a new product or a new service, or you want to establish yourself as a subject matter expert. Make that a theme for a week or 2 weeks, and find different ways to present the information.
I think there's two important points that you just talked about. First of all, the theme aspect and building up to and staying concentrated in a certain area. Sometimes I see people with their content, they're all over the place because they
Mhm.
offer five different services, and you're not making an impact when you're all
Mhm.
over the place because you've lost your audience. I I think that's point number one I would say that you had out of that.
Absolutely. And you, you are not going to make every sale or lose every sale this week. So instead of trying to make 5 different points, really drive home one point and really do it well. I had a conversation with someone, and she had like 4 different types of posts. And I think you can do way more with this. But the first is, if you want people talking about you as a subject matter expert, ask a question. Even though you already know the answer, ask other people how they're handling it
Yeah.
and get the conversation going. So now all of a sudden, people who are interested in this particular topic are seeing the conversation.
And they start engaging, which means you're going to get more reach, which means that's going to go further.
Hmm.
I think the other aspect that you talked about was do it in different forms.
Hmm.
And what I think is really important there is that more than likely your audience likes to absorb content in different ways.
Hmm.
Some people like audio, some people like video, some people like written, some people want it short, some people want it long. Like the list can go on and on.
Hmm.
And if you're only creating your content in one particular form, you're losing all those other people that don't absorb content that way.
Absolutely. And as you try to build on that theme, so maybe you ask the question in a poll and you get engagement from the poll. And maybe now you dive into the topic and start providing resources. Maybe that's a blog post.
Yeah.
Maybe then you do a video, and and it can be your video, or you can reach out to 2 or 3 of the people who had good answers and ask them to share their information in a conversation with you. You don't have to be a podcast host to get
No.
a call like this and say, hey, would you do a 5 minute conversation with me?
Yeah.
And would you just talk about what you wrote? And if that sounds a little overwhelming, you can always just link to an article that that person wrote. And I know it sounds crazy because you're trying to build your authority,
Yeah.
but nobody knows everything.
No, and I think when you're willing to talk with other people, like just with like you and I, our personalities come out
Hmm.
and people buy from people.
Hmm.
And if people become comfortable with you and understand who you are, they're going to be more willing to want to talk to you. I think there is this, obviously with today's environment, nobody wants to get on a phone call at all. And so, like if people don't know who you are and can't see your personality, but if they do, they'll be like, yeah, I probably enjoy chatting with her for a little bit.
Absolutely. And that's where video and audio is so helpful.
Yeah.
Uh, when I write, well, when I write a piece that is particularly good, or when I read an article that is well written, I feel like I know the person, but
Yeah.
I also know that the vast majority of people are not reading and engaging with blog posts the way they used to.
Oh gosh, no.
I mean, we used to actually get real comments and discussion on our blog, not even on social media, but on the blog
I
itself.
remember that.
And people just don't do that anymore. So you have to be realistic that you got to break your message down, break it up into little bites. If you wrote an article and there's one pull quote, in the old days, in a magazine, you would pull that quote out, turn
Yeah.
it into a social share, start a conversation with just that graphic.
Yeah. Yeah. Or record an audio or record a little video. Like
Mhm.
I think sometimes, there's only so much you can say about any industry.
Mhm.
Unless you're in this industry that's like constantly changing like ours. So there's always something to talk about. But you could break that down into bite-sized information that makes it more digestible and stop being so boring.
Mhm. And I love the idea of little bites because I have a short attention span. I know this about myself.
Hmm.
And I mentioned something and then we jump to another topic and I want to revisit this. There are other people in your industry that know a lot about the same subjects you do.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to share their content. When you tag, when you engage, when you interact, they'll be more likely to interact with you. Some of their audience will find you, some of your audience will find them. That's okay because what you're doing is um, prestige by association. If I write something and someone who is perceived to be even more of a subject matter expert than I am comments, engages, interacts on my content, that's going to raise my perceived value in the marketplace.
I think another thing you do with that is you present that you're not in a scarcity
Mhm.
model mindset, that there's plenty to go around. I'm looking for the right fit for us and our business. But if you're unwilling to talk with competitors or other people that you might perceive as competitors, people pick up on that
Mhm.
and they might not want to talk to you for that very reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to close with that point. Too often, I see people that put content out, content out, content out, and they forget that very important call to action post. You are telling this whole story, you're putting all this content out there, and they forget to say, hey, if you really liked my articles and all my stuff on this topic, let's talk. And it's hard for some people, and it's definitely hard for me sometimes to be in that, hey, if you like this, let's chat. But you need to do that.
Now you have to give people direction, like where to find you. You assume people can find you where everything is at. So I mean, I think it's only appropriate for me to say, "Hey, I've got a LinkedIn newsletter on my LinkedIn. If you want to give a follow, a lot of my content is there. I would certainly appreciate that, and I'm available to chat just one on one if you want to talk about your business. How about you?
Absolutely. Same thing. You can find More Than a Few Words. It's a marketing conversation wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And like Jen, if you want to talk about your marketing, you can book office hours with me on my website.
All right, take care.